Hi everyone. Yeah, my title's kind of boring, but 7 a.m. and I couldn't really think of a more exciting title. I'm Amy, as Vary said. Let me see if this works. Fantastic. I work for the Cayman Islands government in the Cabinet office. But again, as Vary said, I used to work in public engagement, and then I did like a brief flirtation with full-on commercial marketing. So I've been to the dark side, and I've slightly come back, and I'm here to tell you about how you can do results and reporting. We're going to focus today on Facebook, but what I want to say is once you understand Facebook reporting, you understand every platform's reporting. You'll kind of unlock something for you and you'll realize everything's the same. Facebook are just kind of the gold standard in reporting. Sometimes it's really intimidating to look at stats on Facebook, but I'm going to walk you through it. You should find it pretty easy after we've gone through it. So we're just going to look at that today, and we've only got 20 minutes, so it's going to be a whistle-stop tour. Like I said, metrics are largely the same on most platforms. By metrics, I mean, the data. There are vanity metrics, which vanity metrics are things like followers, right? These exist on all platforms. So Facebook will tell you how many followers you got this week. And management get really excited about this. Sometimes funders get really excited about this, but we call them vanity metrics for a reason. They just fluff your ego. So they don't do a lot to tell you whether your campaign or your event has been successful. What I mainly say to people is you can use them, but know that you're using a vanity metric and know that it doesn't really mean anything. And we're going to cover engagement today. I just briefly wanted to say, engagement is things like likes, comments, shares on a post. You can very easily calculate engagement rate by taking the number of engagements and dividing it by the reach of a post. So not every platform is going to tell you your engagement rate. Twitter and Facebook will, but you can always calculate it yourself. And this is something that's quite standard we use in reporting. When we're thinking about engagement rates, honestly, I say anything above 1%, you're doing quite well. Anything above 5%, something's gone amazingly well. And then if you're consistently above 5%, some people are, just benchmark against yourself when you're looking at engagement rates and see if you can get it higher. I think the highest we've ever gotten it is like 29% or something, and that was wild. So let's look at Facebook. Before we look at Facebook insights and analytics, I don't want to just walk you through what is in there and how useful it is. What I wanted to say before we did that was on any platform, you should align your metrics to your goal, and you should have a goal. And Callum was actually really good and just kind of hit upon something in marketing without realizing, which is that generally there are 3 types of goals when you're doing stuff on social media, and they align to the way we interact with things online. So people go through journeys with brands on the internet. We don't know about them, and then we do. We know about them, but we're not sure about them. And then we will buy something from them, or we will make a decision to take action with them. So we might not buy anything, but we're making a decision. Those are the 3 stages. And I feel like Callum kind of hit upon that with the way he approaches social media. If you know those, you know what this part of the campaign or posts, what you're trying to do, you can track the success to this goal. So awareness is something where you're just trying to generate interest. The metrics for that would be impressions and reach. You're trying to reach people. You're not trying to necessarily get them to click right now. We call the middle part consideration, when someone knows about you, but they're still thinking about something. Objectives like this are things like clicking on a link and engagement. We're not expecting someone to turn up to an event, but we might expect them to click on a link about your event. And then in the final stage, that's when we are expecting someone to purchase a ticket, turn up to an event, buy a product, or in my case, a government, we're trying to change people's behavior. So I want them to choose to recycle this week instead of not, or, choose to follow the road law instead of not, that kind of stuff. Conversions can be kind of tricky in our field, right? Because we're not tracking purchases, but it can still be done. What you can see on the right-hand side here is when you make an ad in Facebook, it asks you, are you trying to do awareness, consideration, or conversions? And if you tell it what you're trying to do, it will tell you what you need to know. So this is an awesome way to like structure things, and I would recommend doing it for your organic posts too, just your regular posts. Think about, you trying to reach people, you trying to give them something to consider, or you trying to convert them. So on analytics on Facebook, you can go to two places. You can either go to your page /insights, or you can go to somewhere called Creator Studio. I love Creator Studio. It's quite new still, quite fun. It gives you a lot of information. I recommend trying both of them and seeing which one you like. I reckon probably in the next year, Facebook's going to get rid of your page insights and they're going to push you towards Creator Studio because that's a new and fancy thing and that's what they do. So Creator Studio looks a bit like this. When you go in, it's fun and dazzly. What it does is it summarizes all of your pages into kind of an overview. It's going to tell you the insights from the past 7 days, how many people have been reached, and how many people have engaged with things you've posted. That's kind of the overview. If we drill down on the left-hand side, you can go into insights. You can look at your stories, videos, and pages. In videos, it's going to tell you things like how many minutes have been viewed, how many 1-minute video views, how many 3-second, how much video engagement. There are some sanity metrics in here. So minutes viewed is really impressive, but kind of means nothing. How many videos did you put up? Maybe you put up 49.1K videos. But what's important here, if you were posting videos, is looking at things like 1-minute video views versus 3-second views. 3-second views is someone just scrolling by your video. They haven't watched it. But if you divide that by the number of 1-minute video views, we've worked out the engagement rate of the videos, which is quite cool. So we know, oh, I think this one is probably about 10%, looks like. 10%? Don't know, quick maths. So that's kind of a cool area. The next area you can go into, if you go into pages, you can look at an overview of your pages. Again, it's going to tell you people reached, net followers, and engagement. Again, net followers is kind of our vanity metric. Like, I can tell my boss that and they'll be like, yay, that's amazing. Kind of means nothing to me unless I'm trying to get people to follow the page for a very specific reason. People reached is really cool though. That's telling you of all your posts on your page over this period of time, this number of people have been reached, this number of unique people. And you can export all of this data, by the way. If you see in the top right there, you can export it all into Excel. So you can kind of fiddle with this data once you have it. And then the next part of Creator Studio that's kind of cool is you can look in your posts and you can see some stats on how well they're doing, right? So you can look at all your published posts or if you've expired any posts. So you can actually expire posts on Facebook these days. You can show something for 3 days and then expire it. And it will tell you some interesting things. It's going to tell you distribution, which is something a lot of people don't pay attention to. It's kind of cool though. It's going to tell you, compared to average, how many people saw your post. When it's green and it says something like 1.5 times higher, like down there, Facebook is telling you this post is working because Facebook only distributes posts that do well. I don't know if you've seen that. That's how viral kind of works on Facebook. Tries it on some people. If people like it, tries it on more people. And it keeps going and going and going until everyone's seen the post or people lose interest. So a great thing to do if you have high distribution is boost that post because you know people like it and you know it's going to go really far and it will also be quite cheap to boost. If something's doing less good than average, I wouldn't spend money on it because you're going to waste your money because you know it's not doing well. There's something wrong with the words, the text, the images, something not quite clicking. Impressions is the number of potential screens your post showed on. It is not the number of people who saw your post. It is not even the number of accounts that saw your post or the number of times it's been seen. What it is Facebook loads in blocks. So when I'm on my phone, Facebook will load quite a big portion of Facebook and then it will stop. And if I scroll down to that point, it will load again. That's why it kind of works if you don't have mobile data. If I don't scroll down, Facebook still counts the post that loaded as an impression. So I may never see the post. All it's telling me is the potential number of screens this has loaded on. Facebook does track people reached. That's the next column, and that's much more valuable to us in some decrease because there's a number of people who actually saw it, who actually saw the post. Maybe they didn't do anything, but they saw it. And then we've got engagement. Those are clicks, likes, shares, that kind of stuff, which again can be good if you are trying to get people to engage. It's good to track. If I'm trying to reach people, you know, if I'm like brand awareness, I might not care if anyone engaged. Like I don't need you to like my post. I just need you to see my post and recognize that you've seen the post. So that can be kind of good as well. So that's that. Oh, sorry, my keyboard's not working. There we go. And then on page insights, which is your page /insights. If you go on your page, you can see it's on the left-hand column all the way at the bottom. It looks a bit like this. You can see a lot of the same things you can see on Creator Studio here. It's just a bit older. I think people are a little bit more familiar with insights. It's got some good stuff on people. So if you go into the people section on the left-hand side, you'll see that you can work out who your fans are. So who's following your page, where are they from, what city, what language do they speak? But then you can also flip across to people reached and compare that. So your post might be reaching people who are entirely different from your followers. And if they are, you maybe need to sit back and consider your targeting. Like maybe your posts are reaching the right people, but your page isn't laid out in a way that attracts them to follow. So this is kind of good to drill down into who your audience are, who your people are, and that kind of stuff. Page insights will also show you when your audience are online, which can be useful. One thing you have to remember though, if you look at when your audience are online in here, all the times are in Pacific time. And Facebook won't change that time. So you always have to work back from Pacific time to work out when your audience are online. Because it might say 1 a.m. and it's not actually 1 a.m. in the UK. So just something to note. Next up, I'm going to do a quick rundown of ads, and I'm going to try and do this super fast so that we can get through this in time. Naturally, people progress from organic posts to ads, right? And when you go in Facebook ads, it looks a bit like this. It looks a bit crazy. It's like, what's going on? There's a lot of data in here. It's really useful. As you can see, this is a series of campaigns I've run. I name mine based on the goal. I think I recommend doing that. So I name it what the goal is broadly, and then what the metric is that I'm tracking. And then I give it a name. So if we drill down a little bit, we're going to look at this section of the table. What is this? This is the status and campaign information section. It's going to tell me whether my campaign is live or if it's been rejected. And it will also tell me about the bid strategy, which is you can either choose something like lowest cost, which is, hey, I want you to buy ads, make sure they're cheap as possible. Or you can tell Facebook, I want you to buy ads and I want you to get near to this cost. So I want it to cost nearly $1. That's just a smart thing some ad buyers do. If we go next, we have the results section of the table. So results metrics tell people what results your ad achieved, right? And it depends on your goal. So the first campaign we had across there was about engagement. So it's telling me how many post engagements I got versus reach versus impressions. From that, I can work out engagement rates. The second campaign we had on that list was brand awareness, and it's estimating an ad recall lift. Ad recall lift is the number of people after 48 hours who remember you. And Facebook works this out by essentially polling people and then like extrapolating. So this can be quite good though as a measurement of if you're purely trying to achieve brand awareness, this is a metric that tells you, did you achieve it? And then you've got reach and impressions as well. What we're also going to look at now is, that circles off a little bit, I think, the cost metrics, which are over at the end of the table there. Cost metrics are literally how much you spent. So cost per result is the cost per whatever your goal was. You can see there I've got one that was 5 cents per engagement, 1 cent per ad recall, and 37 cents per ad recall. The 1 and the 5 are super duper cheap. Anything below 20 cents is really cheap, or 20 cents. The 37 is a little bit more expensive, but not too bad. You can get costs up to and above $1. So this metric is just calculated as the total spent divided by the number of actions you had that relate to your goal. And then the amount spent is the estimated amount spent to date. It shouldn't be above your campaign budget. If it is, there's something wrong. So there are other metrics you can look at on that table. We only saw ad recall, reach, and impressions. There are things like, these are called performance results, by the way. There are things like frequency. That's how often somebody saw your ad. On average, people need 20 touch points online before they commit to something, by the way. They need a lot of touch points. So it's not bad to have high frequency as long as your messaging changes on your ads or on your posts. If you show somebody the same thing 20 times, they're probably not going to be interested, or they'll just get a bit annoyed. That's why Amazon ads are so annoying. They're just the same thing over and over again. You can get other engagement metrics as well. So we saw engagement. There are things like clicks. This is just clicks on an ad, not necessarily link clicks. So maybe somebody clicked on a picture. You get link clicks, the number of people who clicked on a link you're advertising. Views, the number of people who saw your ad but didn't click. Landing page views is when somebody clicked on a link and actually loaded a landing page. Link clicks, by the way, just means someone clicked on your link. They might have immediately closed the tab. And you can also get lead generation and messages. So these are types of ads you can run in Facebook anyway, and it will tell you, oh, you generated this number of email addresses, or you got this number of messages. The final type of metrics Facebook can show you are conversions, right? So Facebook can show you store purchases. Maybe not relevant for everyone in here, but I'll just let you know, Facebook can do this if you have a location. So if you had a science center, it could estimate the number of people who came in, bought a ticket because of an ad. You have to set it up in a clever way. It can also estimate the number of people who purchase something on your website if you tell it define what purchase is to you. And it can tell you the number of people who just clicked on a button on your website. As well, it can tell you mobile app installations. So conversions are useful for commercial enterprises. They're kind of tricky for if you're not trying to make money, not trying to sell a ticket. In which case, when I'm doing like a decision stage thing, I go back to engagement metrics, and I often rely on link clicks, right? Or we would go offline. So working with the government, we would get people to report on, we would get the police to report on the number of traffic violations and see if it's gone down and see if we can correlate it to anything we've been doing. There are some more options on Facebook I'm going to quickly touch upon. When we watch TV these days, we always have a phone in our hands. Well, most people do. Facebook knows this, and if you have the budget, it has to be quite a large budget, Facebook can hook up with TV channels and allow you to advertise on TV and on Facebook at once. And you can coordinate for shows that you know your audience might be watching, and then retarget them on their phones with something while they're watching the show. These are really effective because we love stuff that's relevant to us, especially when we're watching TV. I think we're bored while we're watching TV. Facebook pixels are really useful. So to tell Facebook about these conversion metrics, you need to install a Facebook pixel, a little bit of code you put on your website. What this does is when people click on something from Facebook and go to your website, Facebook can tell you, well, they clicked on this link as a result of your post. It doesn't have to be an ad. It can be organic posts as well. It's really good for retargeting too. So you could retarget an ad to somebody who's clicked on something on your website, but then maybe didn't buy a ticket. It's just a nice way to convince people, hey, buy a ticket. A/B testing is super cool. I would recommend it as well. So always be testing text against each other, test images against each other, that kind of thing. I'm trying to speed up because I know we don't have enough time. And URL tagging is really cool as well. So URL tagging lets you tag URLs and essentially tell your analytics software where people came from. And then in your analytics software, you can see, oh, this person came from a Facebook ad in August 2021, and it was this, that, and the other. So it's just a really useful way. You don't have to install a pixel to do that, by the way. It's a really useful way of tracking people. If you've ever seen this kind of URL in your browser, you are being tracked. Most URLs are tracked. So Twitter looks different, but it's kind of the same. So if you go to analytics.twitter.com, you can see mentions, likes, and retweets. That's engagement. It will show you engagement rate. It will graph it out for you over the last 28 days. It will also show you impressions. What it doesn't do is track reach. There are tools that can, and there is a rudimentary way that you can track reach, but it's just something to note. Twitter only looks at really impressions. How many screens did this tweet load on? It does not track how many people saw a tweet. It's a little bit different to Facebook. Instagram, you can actually go to Facebook Creator Studio to look at your Instagram metrics. And I would recommend doing that. So you just at the top in the middle, click on the Instagram logo, and it's almost exactly the same. So it's going to show you likes, shares, and comments. And then it's going to show you views, which are your kind of reach metric. Instagram is owned by Facebook, right? So they can do this kind of stuff. And I think it's really good to compare Instagram against Facebook. You can flick back and forth between the two to see how they're doing. I think we've got time for this. The final thing I just wanted to touch upon was, how do you make a report? Well, timing is everything. So nobody has ever asked, that's not true. A couple of times in my professional career, people have asked me to make reports, but often people don't ask for reports, but they're delighted when they give you one, and it helps convince them, A, to give you more funding, or B, convince your boss that you're great at what you do, or that the project is going well. So timing is everything. I tend to automate reports, and we have weekly reports, monthly reports, and quarterly reports that come from social media. Some of them are campaign-based. So the monthly ones are like, we're doing this campaign, here's what's happened. The quarterly one is like a bird's eye view of what's going on. And the weekly ones just track certain key metrics. When you're producing a report, always try and be positive and explain what numbers mean. Always produce a summary. Most people don't read my reports. I send them around the team, and I'm sure nobody reads them. I think one person does. But the summary helps people see, okay, top level, here's our goals, here's how our metrics reflect these goals, here's what was good about that, here's what wasn't so good about that, here's what we're going to do. Graphs, we know graphs are always better than tables, so it gives people some graphs. And then if you have to use a vanity metric, it's okay. But I always say, like, know that you're doing it and know why you're doing it. So if you're just trying to impress your boss, a funder, and you know all they want to know is, yeah, but how many followers did we get last month? That's fine. And if it was impressive, that's great. But as long as you know that that doesn't really mean anything to you, that doesn't tell you about the health of what you've been doing. And then, like I said, try and automate it where possible. It's really tough. I know it's really tough to do social media on top of your day job and to get all of this right. What I do is I automate all of my reports, right? It took a few hours, maybe a couple of days to set it up the way I wanted it. And now I just get emailed monthly reports from Google Data Studio that have everything I need. I write 2 sentences and I send it to my boss. So always report stuff. That's kind of the secret of marketing, is we've automated everything. And then next up, I've just got some useful links. I think we're gonna send this around later so people can use these links. But what I've put here is some free social media templates, some really cool analytics tools you can take a look at, how to write a convincing social media report, and then some reports from Hootsuite that are very interesting on the state of digital. So every year Hootsuite produces this massive report, and they produce one for the world, and then they pull out ones for every country in the world that look at digital trends. What's really cool about this is, they drill down into, here's the growth on Twitter for 16-year-olds in this country. And in the Cayman Islands, by the way, we've had a huge growth on Twitter for young people because nobody else uses it. So it's really interesting to see and track, because it can tell you where you want to be, and it can also tell you, what's a good metric on average, what's a bad metric, that kind of stuff. And then the final one is Facebook Business Manager. If you ever want to get super smart with Facebook, you can convert your profile or your page into a business manager. It's free. It just unlocks some really cool tools. If you have more than one page For example, at the government, I think we have 120. I recommend changing to Business Manager because it lets you manage all the pages at once and kind of compare them against each other. And that's pretty much it, I think. So today we talked about Facebook Analytics, Facebook metrics, reporting and ads, and some other social media metrics. That is all.